Well, what shall we talk about?
Wipe this temple off the face of the earth.
You're in for one hell of a ride.
Welcome back, Commander.
I'm Frank Klepacki. I'm an audio director, composer, and sound designer for video games. I'm most known for my composition work in the Command & Conquer franchise, Star Wars Empire at War, Blade Runner, The Lion King, and Monopoly. Some of the most recent projects that have come out that I've worked on have been the Command & Conquer Remastered Collection, which is available on Steam and EA's Origin service. And also I have a new solo album under my own name called Coded Number. So what does it mean to be an audio director for video games? Well, it means that we make decisions based on everything audio related as it pertains to implementing that into a game. Video game development is very different in terms of audio integration from film and TV. Film and TV is very linear. When you watch a program, it plays out the same way every time. So when a film composer or sound designer gets a cue to mix or create content for, it's a set amount of time, and they can hit beats and they can line everything up so it's perfect. With a video game, you don't have that, at least not exactly to that capacity. Players are very much in charge of how they're going to interact with a game, and that includes their own timing. They're going to operate at their own pace. So you're not guaranteed to hit certain beats necessarily, or have something play out the same way in the same amount of time, because even though there might be an order of events to get to and achieve, it's not going to be laid out in a way that is timed out. So at least not most of the time. Composing for games, not only is it different from TV and film in terms of the linear thing, but it's different in terms of the approach. So, for example, before I compose for a game, typically I'll sit down with the designers and the producers of a game and read some documents about how the game is going to be developed, what the general plan is, what the premise is, if there's a story there, and the real bullet point is, how do I add personality to this game with a soundtrack? Because that is a big part of how the player is going to experience this, and that's going to define their mood and how they feel as they navigate through this. So I try to determine that early, and I try to figure out, all right, is it going to be based on genre? Is it going to be based on certain types of instruments? Is it going to be based on mood alone? What are the sort of the key things about this game that is going to inform how I approach composing for it? And those are just the basic broad steps up front. It goes deeper than that in respect of how it's used in the game. So when you start a level, for example, is there going to be an introductory piece to the level, or is it just going to be immediate intensity? Is it going to kind of get you in an upbeat mood to kind of get into the groove of things, or is it going to be, really just low key? The events really are going to dictate, and the design is really going to dictate how that falls together. then you're going to have moments, in the game that are going to require different emotional evoking pieces. Combat is generally more intense, but there might be multiple levels of combat, right? There might be just one guy attacking you, in which case you might have a subtle underscore, versus a group of guys attacking you, which then it becomes more intense. You might have two separate cues for those instances, or you might implement it in a way where there are stems. Stems meaning like separate tracks, and therefore it would be implemented in the game technically to know that if you're only fighting one guy, only play these stems, and when more guys join in, then fade in the rest of the stems that are already playing, and then it fills out the piece. That's one sort of other common implementation of music in video games, depending on the game itself and what the decision making is. So you have that. You might have cues that are just based on story points that become available to you, information that's given to the player. It might take you out of the game for a moment to go into a cinematic of some kind and kind of give you a little bit of information that furthers the story, and you might score that in more of a linear fashion, and then come out of that back into gameplay music, and maybe it's something that's seamless. Maybe it just kind of fades out and then you fade into something else that is part of the game at that point. There's a lot of different decisions that you can make. You just have to decide what's best for the game. That's really the goal. What is best for the game? What enhances this game's personality from an audio perspective, from a music perspective, and then we just kind of take it from there, and just really try to hone in on the things that are special and capitalize on those moments. When I personally am composing for a game, I not only do I look for those things that are dictated by design and production, but oftentimes we don't have the luxury of seeing the game fleshed out or able to play it. It's not done yet. So in that case, we've got to kind of do some educated guessing and go by documents or just conversations that we've had with the team, and and then I'll start creating something based on that. And because I'm a gamer and I understand the general scope of how this is probably going to feel and how it's going to pan out, I usually do pretty well with getting a good idea of that up front. But there's iteration and some back and forth sometimes with the team, depending on how it impacts everyone, because ultimately the people that are closest to the design and how it's going to play really know how it should feel, more so than maybe even myself. So I'll put that in, try it out, see how it works, and if there's some feedback from the team, then I will take that into account and I'll go and rework the score so that it accommodates more what their vision was, because it is about really complementing a creative vision that's happening, even if it's in tandem. So so I do that. And the technical aspect of it too, deciding on when music should play and even deciding when music shouldn't play. Maybe you have it silent for a little while so that you can appreciate the ambience. There's sound effects, there's the environment of whatever part of the landscape you're in, and you want to you want to appreciate that. So you have moments of silence to focus on the sound design and sound effects and voices. Rather than constant score. So those are decisions to be made too. And I work closely with programmers, and particularly usually there's an audio programmer that's dedicated to helping me out with having the support that I need in order to pull off the way that I believe the music should be integrated. If there isn't already a means to do that in the game engine itself, then I will have the added engineering support to complement that. A game engine is basically the foundation for what the entire game runs on. It's the engineering code and base of which is going to run the design of how this game is built. It requires the engineers to make sure that all of the pieces are working together well. It requires design to have an understanding of how the scripting works and how maybe chaining together different nodes and systems work. And, and we all work together as a team in order to accomplish the goals that we have as the vision progresses during the development of a game. And developing a game, if you're talking small scale indie stuff, that could maybe take 6 months. If you're talking, middle of the road, it could take a couple of years. If you're talking like AAA stuff, it could take 4 years. I mean, there's a lot of time and a lot of people that are on these video game teams, video game development teams that put this stuff together. And so it just depends on the scope of the game that's being done. What is the goal, and how do we get there in the most efficient manner with it working well and being fun. Being fun is really the main point we always want to drive home, because if it's not fun, then all of that works for nothing. So that's a big deal as well. All of our individual roles are then supporting one another to ultimately create fun for people. When you think of sound design and sound effects for movies and TV, for example, you have a mix to deal with, and it might be in surround, and of course you're finding the elements that best fit what's happening on screen. But again, it's going to play out the same way every time, so you can really fine tune those mixes to be that experience. Well, in a video game, once again, you don't have that luxury, because the player can be at any particular place at any time and be using any type of weapon, because there might be multiple weapons to choose from, upgrades, all of that sort of thing. So because of that, you've got to have sounds in place to accommodate all of those choices that can happen at any time during the game. And it has to be incorporated into, these like compartmentalized, if you will, mini systems and animations and any other scripted sort of events that might occur. Because if a player has a gun, you want to make sure that it's firing the appropriate sound, that the appropriate sound is also heard in the distance and sounds like it's in the distance, that you would hear the bullets, the bullet casings hitting the floor, or, hitting the reloading foley of the weapon. And then he switches weapons. Now you've got a whole new set of sounds, a whole new set of animations, a whole new set of things that are happening, and the player's in control of that. So the sounds have to be integrated into these mini systems, if you will, that complement each individual thing the player might access. And so then it just becomes a spider web of that. There's so much of that to keep track of. And then you've got ambience. What's going on in the world? Is it a general like surround sound ambience that just happens because maybe you're looking top down, or are you 3D right in the middle of it and you are the player? And when you look around, that environment should actually be in surround but stay still, so that you're moving with the proper positioning of what the surround sound is doing. There's things like putting in what we call emitters in a 3D space, where it's part of the world you're in. It's part of this level. So when you walk by something, it's actually in that 3D position and you hear it move past you, but it's actually in a fixed position right there, in the map of this level. Whether it's in a tree or in a building, or you've muffled it so it sounds like it's behind a wall. How you integrate that into the game is it's 50% of the work, really. Content creation is not enough. You have to have an understanding of these things in order for it to be effective and translate to how it's going to work ultimately in a game. Voice acting is probably still closer to how it's traditionally done for TV and film, but you would cast actors much the same way, and you would of course have scripts for them to read and record, but the scripts are a bit different in that there's going to be different lines of dialogue for different situations that the player is going to either experience or hear from someone else in the game, whether it's a quest giving character, non-player character, someone that furthers the story along. So there might be for example, there might be a situation where you approach this person that sends you on a quest, but he tells you something based on what you've already accomplished. So if the player accomplished XYZ, he gives you this line of dialogue. If the player accomplished everything, then he gives you this dialogue instead and rewards you for that. So there's all of those things that come into play where you have to have a clever script writer to accommodate all of these lines of dialogue for all of these situations that the player could experience. And then from the audio perspective, we have to not only edit these lines to sound appropriate, but then we have to integrate that into the game to be part of this system that accommodates what the player's progress is. Right now, especially in the time of COVID and people having to quarantine or work from home, which a lot of that is happening, it really has put more of the emphasis on being tech savvy now more than ever, because you can't just go to a regular recording studio that has a bunch of people working at it to do all the work for you and you just show up as the talent. Or if you're a musician, it's not enough for you to just, show up to a session and have someone else record you. You've got to record yourself now. And it's not enough for you to just be a great voice actor. You need to designate part of your space now, deaden the sound, put up some blankets, whatever you need to do, get a good microphone, get a good interface. You have to now start thinking about these kinds of things and knowing at least enough engineering so that you can record yourself and send assets to people to be able to use in stuff like video games or commercials or television or whatever the final media is going to be. I've always typically looked for voice actors that had their own recording capability even in the past, because I would often seek people that lived in other countries, and I can't justify flying to another country's studio to record one actor. I might as well, it's easier to find that online and just, have them, deal with the recording on their end if they have the capability. If not, then I've got to look for someone else who can. Musicians right now are looking to do lots of different collaborative things together where they're, recording parts on each other's songs, and they're putting out videos of, multiple cameras of multiple people in different locations and making their own music videos out of that. So in order to do that, you have to have the means of recording yourself in a quality way, and you have to have the means of doing video of yourself too. So all of those things are important. Technology is something that we all need to rally around, to utilize in order to further our careers right now as creative types. It's more important now than ever. So workflow is extremely important to me. Because I do the variety of things that I do on a regular basis and on a daily basis for that matter, I want everything set up and ready to go at all times. I don't want anything interrupting the creative flow or the workflow in order to keep my mind in that seamless transition, because I might be going into my DAW and recording music and then stopping that for a minute and then going into editing voice dialogue or recording voice dialogue. Then I might have to record live instruments being played. And then I might have to do a Zoom meeting or a Skype meeting or a Discord meeting. And I want to make sure that I have things just hooked up to all of that so that all I have to do is just switch into that app and I'm there. And I'm not worried about setting something up, grabbing cables, grabbing the right microphone, or accommodating a sample rate and having to dig into, all of that. It's technical hurdles will stifle creativity and progress. So with that in mind, I have a drum set that's ready to be played. It's already mic'd up and ready to go. I have a guitar amp that's mic'd up and ready to go. I have a bass amp that's plugged in, mic'd direct, ready to go. I have microphones ready for voiceover, ready to go. I've got a mic set up for specifically for meetings online that I use. And, that requires a lot of physical inputs, of course, and a lot of clever routing. And the way that I'm able to do that, fortunately, is I use a RME Fireface UFX Plus interface and a RME 12 mic unit. And both of those together give me 24 physical inputs between both of those units, and ADAT input and output, AES EBU, and MADI in and out, which is great. I mean, I've hooked the 12 mic via MADI into the UFX Plus so that I can utilize those channels and free up ADAT channels for other uses, such as headphone distribution amps and things like that I want to route in that way. And that way I've got personal mixes set up for anyone who comes in here as a complete band, for example. They can run their own mixes, and I don't have to worry about, you know, what I'm doing for them. I can just focus on the session. So Total Mix Effects has actually replaced a physical mixer for me because it shows me the inputs, the outputs, and the software playback that it's accessing. And it even has EQ, dynamics, and effects that I can run on those channels. So if I want to monitor myself with enhanced EQ and compression, I can do that. If I don't want to record that and have the option of putting my own EQ and compression on it in the box later, I can do that. There's a lot of great power with that, and you know, it's really alleviated a lot of, you know, extra cable snakes running that I used to have to use in order to split off and send signals to multiple units. Now everything is really cleaned up and refined. It's actually, you know, these 2 single space racks have replaced half of my gear. And then the other thing is I can use other channels virtually, basically, that only my computer needs to access, like for the Zoom and Skype and Discord stuff. I have those on separate MADI channels. They're already hooked up and ready to go whenever I need them. So that's really huge. It's really huge to be able to say, okay, I'm gonna go record drums right now, done. I need to record voiceover now, done. I need to record guitar right now, done. Okay, now I've got a meeting, done. All of that stuff is so important in order to keep your progress and in your creative state of mind flowing, so you don't get frustrated and you don't have to stop what you're doing in order to accommodate one thing that you know, didn't think of that you need to now get to, or whatever the case is. So when it comes to video games, of course, probably the most common question I'm always asked is, how do you get into that industry, or how do you even start? My personal journey, I started as video game tester. You know, I applied to work at a video game company, and I, you know, got to play video games basically and try to break them, which is really what the job entails. Your job is to really play the game and try to play it the wrong way, as many ways as you can think of, in order to try to get it to glitch or crash or break or do something it's not supposed to do. And so in doing that, it opened my eyes to, you know, kind of more about what the different departments were doing in video game development, and I was really inspired by that. It really made me want to be involved more than just what I was doing. So I aspired to that. Fortunately, I already had a head start in recording and composing and doing that at a young age. So I was sort of in the right place at the right time for that as well, because the video game industry, you know, we're talking, you know, 1990, was also in its infancy in that way. It hadn't really turned into this huge thing that it is now. You know, we were working on the original Nintendo Entertainment System, for example. So that was sort of my entry point. But the bar is pretty high now in terms of what's expected as far as the quality of work that you can do. So, you know, it requires you to not just be creative as a composer or sound designer, but also to have the tech savvy, also to, you know how to engineer your sessions, know how to mix, to know how to compete with what's out there already. If you listen to the stuff that you like and ask yourself if you can match up to that, you know, that's really what your goal is. And that's just for content creation. You know, that's not even accounting for implementation and the learning curve you're going to have to learn those kinds of systems and programs. And, you know, there are classes you can take for that stuff, even online, for things like the Unreal Engine or WWise or Fmod or whatever the audio middleware is that you might interface with. All of that stuff is there, and fortunately it's more accessible than ever with the internet and lots of education is available that didn't used to be there. And there's even colleges that have classes dedicated to video game development. Some schools are all about video game development. But, and interning is another thing that you can try to do. The bigger companies are usually the ones that are more open to such things. But, just get involved with communities online even. There are modding communities that, there are gamers out there that are so passionate about games they love, and they have some ability to either code or do art or audio or design or whatever, and they come up with their own variants of the games that they love and make those available, and it's just free for people to play and be part of the community, and they just do it out of passion. If you get involved with something like that, then you will have something to show for what you want to do and be able to show it to someone that you might be applying online to go work for. So all of those things are important, apart from just having a video that showcases a mix that you did or a SoundCloud or whatever. I mean, take it to the next level and show that, yeah, you're really interested in games because you've actually taken the time to learn about how they're made and interfaced with people that are equally passionate about making them in order to create something that is genuinely playable. Well, that about wraps it up. Thank you for watching. I hope that you got a good basic idea about video game development and video game audio. For more information on my projects, you can visit frankklepacki.com. And for more information on RME's units, you can visit rme-usa.com. Thank you again for watching, and take care.
guys so much. Woo. Tony Dickinson, guitar, bass, and keyboards. Travis Melberg on the drums. Max Noel on the bass. Connor Engstrom on lead guitar. Of course, my name is Frank Klepacki. It's been an honor to perform for everybody here tonight. Thank you all for coming out to support this. I thank everybody at MagFest for having me. Brandon, Aaron, Rafe, everybody that I've interacted with. Steph, so many people that have just been amazing and accommodating. And man, this is awesome. We are going to all go to the Rock Island over here after the show and sign and meet and greet and do anything you guys want for the rest of the night. I don't care, I'll stay up all damn night. I mean, that's a pretty awesome song to end with. That was gonna be our last song. But I don't know, you guys have been super awesome, and I feel like there's a couple more of these songs in the mix that that deserve to be played. What do you think? You got it.